Hello, hello, hello. It is your host with the most, KDK Capri, and the mentor and the mentee here back with another episode of the Wealthy and Healthy Podcast. I got something special for y'all today. I'm gonna do a quick presentation of my own interpretation of being a wealthy and healthy entrepreneur and being a visionary mindset webinar. A visionary mindset driven entrepreneur. So I'm going to introduce to you the visionary mindset webinar to where it's been a couple almost 6-7 months to where I've taken to craft this course. Last month we were focused on health. In this month we're going to be focused on wealth. So I got my 2025 business blueprint interview dropping with Miss Amani Thompson. Thank you again for coming, and looking into getting some other interviews going. But just revamping the podcast is something that I'm working on daily. Right now, as you can see, I'm still in the studio, but we actually have the the space to where we are creating daily content in a a different type of setting. We got lighting, we got couches, we got mics, we got everything that we could need possibly to just create just a sound and just a a vibe, right? So the new episodes will be dropping soon. I'm actually I've been diving into learning into how to edit and just create my own I just edit and create my own, shorts with, my podcast episodes. So that's, essentially what I'm working on. So it's gonna take me a minute, but I'm working on it. I want everything to be perfect for everybody, for all the viewers. So again, just stay tuned, man. I'm gonna have all the sauce for y'all soon. But yeah, I'm gonna get into this, this presentation, and just like, comment, and subscribe. Show me how you feel about it, and yeah, we're gonna get right into it. We're going to focus on personal credit. We're going to focus on how to create debt with income, right? So I'm going to break down a couple basics, right? This whole month, we're going to be dropping daily content. It's going to be right here in the studio. And I will be dropping, probably about 3-4 videos a week. Hopefully one in the actual studio. We are, still revamping everything, still getting everything set up. But I believe that implementation is success. So I'm gonna just keep implementing and keep giving y'all free sauce, because today I'm gonna give y'all like a lot of free sauce. Like there's a lot of free sauce that I could go on, and I could go on hours and hours and hours about how to do this, but there's so many different ways to skin a cat. So what we're gonna talk a little bit about today, and I got a presentation for y'all. Let me share my screen right quick. So let's dive right in because it's important, right? So we are live, right? We are like live in effect. It is, what is today? I believe it's the 14th. Yes, May 14th, Wednesday, 1:14 p.m. I'll probably drop this immediately after I edit. And that's one thing I've been diving into. That's why it's taking me so long to drop the Amani interview. Just because the fact of me trying to just get everything done by myself, right? Just because I've been diving into it and I've been learning about it, so I kind of wanted to have my first project be generated and created by me all the way around. So yeah, that's something I've been working on. That's why it's been taking me so long. But I think that it's going to be worth the wait, right? So again, we are live. When your mindset shifts, your freedom is no longer a risk. This is a quote I wrote a couple months ago. I think it's important to iterate. I think it's important to talk about when we talk about mindset shifts, right? When you go through any program or any coaching program, any type of digital course, you always have them first few days starting out with mindset and conditioning. Sometimes they talk about health. But here's the thing. Mindset shifting is something that you can dive deeper into to create a sense of freedom, to create a sense of security within your mental self, right? So when you create a mindset in the manner of you thinking that freedom is no longer a risk, then no risk is too big, because your freedom is the ultimate risk. So, nothing, you never become, bigger than the program, right? So this is something that I wrote, in direct pursuit of just, becoming financially free. And I believe that no one is ever financially free because we always get goals and we always strive to do different. So I'll never, officially say I'm financially free, but I will say, I'm comfortable in my skin and I'm comfortable in my abilities to where, any situation that I'm in is a situation that I can not only, get out of, but a situation that I can capitalize on. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So I want you to keep in mind when your mindset shifts, your freedom is no longer a risk. When your mindset starts to, when you think different, you see different. So we're going to break that down today. So what you're going to know by the end of our time together, and, you know, people say when you pay attention. But I want to introduce this like when you pay attention, it pays. It pays. So when you pay attention, it pays. And when you pay attention and implement, you get success, right? So paying attention plus implementation can equal success. So what you will know by the end of our time together, I'm gonna teach you, and you're gonna learn how credit and consumer law works. I'm gonna give you the basics and the need to knows. You don't have to be a law professor or a law professional to know about credit consumer law and your rights as a consumer. I'm going to teach you how to shift your mindset from consumer to seller. Now, what that means is I'm going to teach you how to shift your mindset from basically buyer to seller. I'm going to teach you how to buy as a seller, but sell as a seller, essentially. And I'll break that down later. I'm going to give you the biggest misconceptions and mistakes that we deal with in entrepreneurship and how to avoid them or work through them. I'm going to show you how to skip the guessing work. I'm going to show you how to go get a mentor and build relationships, right? To where you don't have to deal with all the guessing work and all the XYZs, right? So the next thing I'm going to teach you, I'm going to give you 3 steps every entrepreneur needs to take in order to scale and start their business. This works for any business model. This works for any industry. This is essentially a framework for an entrepreneur, not necessarily a certain type of industry, right? So I'm gonna break all that down. But what I want to ask you before we dive right in is why are you here? Like what brought you here? Like did the pain bring you here? Are you just someone who's trying to figure out how to fix your credit? Are you just someone who's trying to figure out how to get out of debt? Are you someone that's trying to figure out how to, use their debt to create income? You're trying to figure out how to start your business, but there's so many things holding you back. Did that bring you here or did the pleasure bring you here? Are you, someone who's like, man, I'm ready to go get that dream house. I'm ready to go get that dream car. I'm at a job I like right now, but I want some extra security. Did that bring you here? Either way, we have the same end goal. What is that goal? That's financial freedom. That's creating passive income. That's quitting your job in 2025. Every single thing that I tell you today is going to give you the framework of how to quit your job and create passive income and financial freedom in 2025. Period. Or if it's not showing you how to do it right now, it's going to give you the framework of how you can get in the not the situation, you can get in the conditioning to where this is very a very available opportunity and essentially a realistic goal, right? So the time to change is now. Why is the time to change now? Because number one, we always hear the analogy or the term, I might not be here tomorrow, but I want to introduce something else to you guys. If the time to change is now, what other time would there be? What do I mean by that? I mean, if the time now isn't to become the best you, then it's never going to be the right time. If you're thinking it's not the right time to start my business, it is the right time. It's the time to where you hit the drawing board. If it's time to where you're like, I need to get out of this relationship, the time is now because nothing is more important than your personal development, your personal health, and your happiness, right? So the time to change is always now. And change is not a bad thing, right? So I got 2 rules for y'all. Take notes. Why do I say take notes? Because you don't want to take notes unless you're going to utilize them. I got like 20, 30 notebooks of just information of just me going here and looking up this, watching this video, and just obtaining information, but I didn't know what to do with it. So, utilize information is power. So, utilize your information, get information, take notes, and don't take notes unless you're going to utilize them. That's my only 2 rules here. Get something out of this experience, right? Because I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to give you some sauce today. So, don't waste your time. Create, a new environment to where, things work for you. And let's dive right in, right? So let's talk about who this webinar is for. This presentation I personally built. I took a long time to craft this out. So I essentially want, the right people to be in the right place, right? Like I said, don't waste your time. Don't, don't come here and with a different type of mindset, right? So I'm gonna give you, who is this for, right? I'm gonna give you the framework, right? Because this is for the future and existing entrepreneurs. This is for those business owners. This is for people who want to learn. When you want to learn, you are going to want to grow, right? So you got to be okay with being taught. The best teachers are the best students, right? So you got to have at least 10 hours. That's one or 1.5 hours a day to work on this skill set. Why? Because you have to be able to put this into your daily routine. This is a non-negotiable. This is something that you like. If you wake up in the morning and you say, I'm just gonna skip a shower, you're probably gonna be smelling musty. So you want to be in the position to where certain things are non-negotiables to where you can set yourself up for success. If you're someone who don't mind going outside musty, you might want to change your mindset. But if you're someone like me who gotta walk outside, you gotta walk out a little fresh. I'm thinking about going to get my hair cut done. I don't even want to walk outside like this. So you gotta have at least 1 or 1.5 hours a day to work on this because it's imperative. It's a non-negotiable, right? Someone who's planning for the future. If you're planning for the future, if you someone who live in the moment but planning for the future, you like to enjoy your life, but you still want to have some type of security, some type of blanket security blanket, some type of cushion. This is for you because you want to be able to plan for the future. When you want to be able to live your life, but still uh still have room for improvement, right? Or still have room for error, right? So this is for you if you're looking to do that. If you're looking to start a business or quit your job, I'm gonna give you I'm gonna give you all that you need to know on the basics of starting your business and quitting your job today. And it all starts with mindset. Why? Because once you have the mindset, no venture or no risk is too big for you. Right. So this is the framework. This is what creates entrepreneurs. This is what starts, businesses. This is what sparks ideas. This is what, sparks innovation. Right. Mindset, visionary mindset. You have to have the vision. Right, so let's talk about who this is not for. This is not for people who are stagnant or comfortable. This is not for people who are looking to retire at their job. This is not for people who are lazy, no urge to change, or can't take criticism or be taught. Why? Because we're going to be talking about the hard truth. I'm going to be talking about why 90% of America looks and acts like this. This is not where we want to be, right? This is where I was a couple years ago, right? And as you can see, I'm looking a little different. Money make you look different. But I'm going to show you a couple, what I looked like a couple years ago, and things are going to start to they're going to start to spark for you, right? So, matter of fact, let's talk about it right now. Who am I? My name is Athena Evans, aka K Capri, KD, the mentor, the mentee. But I am a credit enhancer. I am an author. I am a mindset coach, and so much more. Right? I essentially teach young entrepreneurs how to start their business, scale their business, and use their credit to create income, or essentially use debt to create income. That's essentially what I do for my business. So what I want to highlight is, let me move this out the way. We're going crazy today. Hold on. Where's my mouse? This is okay. My bad, y'all. Okay, so what I want to highlight is I went from the streets to financial freedom. This was this is crazy. This was probably about 4, 5, 6 years ago. This was probably 2, 3 years ago. And I probably still look the same. I don't know. Look a little different. But what is important is you see the growth, right? I can walk into a room and demand attention. I can walk in a room and demand professional courtesy. Why? Because I'm a business owner now. I'm not in the streets anymore. So if you can do it, if I can do it, you can do it, and I believe that you can do it better. I went from looking like this. This is what I heard something the other day. No, it was actually my interview with Miss Amani Thompson. She essentially said, when I go to work with somebody, I look at their social media and see what they post. Now, this was a Facebook post. Now, let me post this on Facebook now and try to, call my contacts and my people and say, hey, I want to do business. They're gonna look at this and be like, nah, what is that? You feel me? So I went from the streets to financial freedom. And it all started with, me being in the struggle, me not knowing how to navigate through life, me not knowing how to create a different type of value. I wasn't taught this. My brother, who is recently, incarcerated now, was the only one of my family, of my immediate family, to graduate high school. My sister, my youngest sister, is graduated high school in about a few weeks. She'll be the second person, but nobody else in my family has ever done this before. Nobody else has started a business. Nobody else has tried to create financial freedom. So this is a stomping ground that I was completely blind to, and I was a virgin to, because it was, it was hard to, demand certain respect from certain people who've already had 20 years in the business when I'm just coming in. Just because my idea is bright doesn't mean I'm bright, right? So I had to learn. But you know what the streets taught me? The streets taught me a lot. The streets taught me about how to demand attention and demand respect in any room. The streets taught me how to make money in any setting, right? So you learn certain things, and like I said, when you get that visionary mindset, you can essentially be in any situation and be able to capitalize off of any situation, right? So that's how I got there. And let's talk about this, right? I'm sorry. So let's talk about how I went from the streets to business meets. Like, now we got the new podcast studio. It's very nice. It's very sleek. It's very clean. Shout out Rob for being the director. Shout out to Miss Amani Thompson for being the very first interview. Shout out my co-host that is, to be continued. Right, we gonna drop that soon. But I went from business meets to, I went from the streets to business meets, from having my first business at 19, it flopping and me not making a lot of money at all. Um, this was the backpack, it's not anything else's. And this is the front. This was something that I really put a lot of pride into, the Black and Wealthy brand. I'm honestly thinking about revamping and relaunching this brand, because it's something that I put a lot of time into. It's something I added my culture into. It's something that I really wanted to make work. But it taught me it taught me about the aspect of entrepreneurship. This was my very first business at 19 years old, and something kicked me in the ass and told me, you have to do this, or there's no other way. This was my first public speaking event. If you know, then you know. This was a business meetup slash family vacay, to where I could essentially write, to where honestly I could book that flight with rewards from my credit card, which is essentially for free. You just get money for spending money with your credit card. But then you can write that off as a tax deduction. Why? Because if you know certain type of laws, tax laws, you know that anything in pursuance of business revenue or income, aka personal development or seminars, webinars, things that help you make money, can be written off as a business expense or a business deduction. So all this was deducted. Quiet is kept. But I don't gatekeep. I don't gatekeep. I'm gonna give y'all some game today. That's just a whole nother conversation. But yeah, again, this is my first clothing business. I'm the Black and Wealthy clothing line. And it just speaks to my values, right? It speaks to who I'm speaking to, right? It speaks to what I want to accomplish. I want my community to be black and wealthy. So but I don't discriminate 100%. Like, some of my best friends I've worked with, we've from all different places and all different types of, sounds of the earth. So, I just really focus on entrepreneurship and becoming wealthy, essentially. But I do like to add my culture into that, which is important. I think it's really important to, build your brand around your personal values. Why? Because you want someone to resonate with you in the end of it. You want someone to resonate with you. So you have to, have a certain type of story. Gucci and Versace have a story behind it. That's People are not buying the merchandise, they're buying the story in the name. So that I think that's very important. Um the next thing I want to talk about, minimize this again, is how I got there. How do you like how do you get from being someone who's consumed by the gangs and the drugs, and not able to, you know learn how to make a different type of lifestyle for themselves. How do you get to that to this? How do you get to teaching entrepreneurs how to become a different person? How do you teach people who were raised in this, this society or this economic system of, go get a job, go to college, go get a 401k, retire when you're 60 and live the rest of your life the way you want to? How do you get out of that? How do you get out of that mentality? How do you get out of that mindset, more importantly? Um, and it all has to do with determining factors. Now, determining factors are not the end result, but determining factors always shape you and they create an environment or a set conditioning around why you are the way you are. For example, myself is an example, and I don't want to be one of those course creators who create all these case studies uh, and show these client reviews, because one thing I noticed is when I was taking those courses, such courses, and I was taking those classes, I didn't want to be the people who were in the reviews. I wanted to be the person who was making the video. So I studied them instead of studying the reviews or studying their case studies. So what I want to talk about today is how I personally got there, right? And my life changed. I went from facing up to 50 years. Me and my brother, my twin, you can see him. He's right here. Um, about a year older than me. Here's the thing. Um, we got caught up with a case, and we essentially was doing young knuckleheaded stuff, and we didn't know what was in store for us as young people involved in the street life. So essentially, what happened was we caught a case. Caught a case. Um, went through the whole process of going through litigation or whatever you want to call it, criminal defense, criminal offense, and essentially at the end of it, I'm gonna just skip long story short. My brother took a case for something that we all had a hand in, and he essentially got 19 years in prison. So we both went from facing, and whoever was involved in it went from facing about 50 years. And that's hard when you're a young black male, when you're a young black female. We were only about 19 or 20. So our life was, just starting essentially. So, it was hard. But more importantly, it was eye-opening. It was what do you want to call it? Like it was like literally like it, eye-opening. I feel like I can't really explain it because it was a personal experience that I've never went through. It felt like an out-of-body experience. Just seeing like the people I grew up with either being dead or in jail, or just the people that's closest to me not being able to be there when I wanted to just get where I wanted to go. So I went from doing that, and I feel like everybody has that moment, right? And that's where I come back to saying conditioning is important. And this is how we understand the GPS analogy, to where I spoke on this in other episodes, to where you understand the GPS analogy, to where you understand where you are to know where you want to go. So I knew I was in the streets. I knew I had a whole different way of thinking about how to make money, how to create a business. But here was the thing. I knew how money worked, and I knew how to keep it coming in instead of going out more than it's coming in. That's that's like a balance sheet type of thing. That's like a assets versus liability type of conversation. So I started learning about things like that. I started learning how money worked before I got the money. Very important. So, like I said, I went from doing that to being a business owner and creating financial freedom. Because here's one thing about me: I never went to school, but I was a straight A student. Okay, I just think that needs a little bit of like. Let me say it again: I never went to school, but I was a straight A student. So I had to know where to put my information. Right, I had to know where to put my knowledge. I had to know where to offer my value or offer my service. Right? So that was very important. And my life changed that day when he got sentenced to that 19 years. Why? Because I knew that this was not what I wanted for myself. I knew this is not where I would be when all was said and done. And I knew that my life was not predicated on this situation. Right? So, like I said, man, things started to change. Oh, hold on. Let me put this back up real quick for y'all. Excuse me. Okay, so like I said, man, my life changed. Like it became a different. I just was breathing air different. The air was a little less thick on my side now. You know what I mean? So when I talk about going from the streets to business, me, I think it's important to understand if you're going through that divorce, if you just lost that job that you really needed and you need to pay your bills, it is not the end of the world, and it is not the end of your story, right? These are determining factors, but your goal is to become the best you can be. So don't let anything hold you back. Don't let anything hold you back. And I say that to say this, man. There's no excuses. Every day you wake up is the perfect day to boss up. If you know anything about the big boss, Rick Ross, from Carroll City, Florida, Miami. But the thing about this man is I really admire him a lot because he came from the same place that I came from the, I mean, I'm from Colorado, but he came from the same, environment that I came from, meaning the drugs, the consumption of guns and the murders and the overdoses, people around you dying every day, people around you getting arrested or incarcerated every single day, right? And what happened? This man, excuse me, I'm tripping. I'm trying to do this. Okay, so this man, Rick Ross, the boss, he made it possible. He didn't even make it possible. Um, he made it cool to be a boss, right? He took his rap money and went and invested it and knew how money works, so he invested it, and now he owns property. He owns estates. He owns businesses to where he is one of the richest people in America. Why? Because he knew that mindset means every day you wake up is the perfect day to boss up. Every day you wake up is the perfect day to capitalize on opportunity. And now we're seeing him go from working in the music industry, going on to working and going to business seminars with Grant Cardone and some of the biggest entrepreneurs or business owners that we see in our life, the people that we look up to as influencers or as role models, right? Or people that we want to be like or model. Why? Because he learned how money worked and he learned how vision and mindset creates different type of opportunities. One thing I like to say is credit creates opportunities, but mindset creates lifestyles, right? So there's no more excuses, right? Every day you wake up is a perfect day to boss up, aka meaning there is no more excuses. There is no reason why you should not be waking up every day and spending at least 1 or 1.5 hours on this skill set, meaning creating your brand, learning about financial literacy, learning how to craft your business into a place where you're not waiting hand and foot for someone else to give you funding, or you're not waiting hand and foot for Facebook to get your leads, right? So this is the framework that works. um and I say this to say, like, I went from case study. This is the case study right here. I went from working at Burger King, right? I worked at Burger King for about 4 or 5 years, right? On and off, but most of the time there for about 45, 50 hours a week. Sometimes even more. Very busy. But I went from making that 20K to, high end 22K a year. That is very low. That is like the step before poor, right? And I consider myself growing up poor. Like, I might have made 22K, but nobody else around me was making any type of money, right? We were just scraping and scrapping for scraps. So I went from that 20K a year. Look at this, is me flexing the 200. What is that? Probably about, like, yeah, that's probably about 200. Next one here with the gold chain. Like, just thinking I had it going on, but I was only making 22K a year. I thought I had it going on because I was driving a Benz and I was had a business, or I was in the hood, so I was doing my thing, right? So I thought I had it going on. But I went from that at 19 to now, fast forward 22 years old. Last year I made 70K alone just from going that. Like, it's a huge jump going from 20 to 22K a month. I mean 20 to 22K a year to going to 70K a year in a span of 2 years. It is almost not necessarily unheard of, but we don't hear about it every day. And we definitely don't hear about it in the news because let's talk about a control narrative. But I went from that, excuse me, to scraping. Give me 1 second, y'all. So I went from that 20 to 70K a year. Like this is me flexing a gold chain, sitting in the back of the Burger King, thinking I had it going on. Like, hey, my brains, oh Lord. But again, another conversation for another day. But when we talk about mindset, this is how I got there. I switched my mindset from working to die, and I started thinking about money. And I started thinking about how money worked, and I started thinking about how money multiplies and how money liquidates and how money flows. And money is like water. It's just there, right? So that mindset got me there, right? And one thing that Dr. Wayne Dyer says is if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Why? Because the second I stopped thinking about, oh, I need to be in Burger King, I need to, this is the way I'm paying my bills. The second the things I started to look at changed. The second my business started getting a little bit better. The second I started learning things and being able to attain information and being able to understand how to utilize it, things started to change for me. So that brings me to that first step. The first step that every entrepreneur needs to start and scale their business is that mindset shift. This is a science. These are things that you can break down with the formula and add in X plus Y equals Z. Right. So mindset shift is the very first step. Right. So I knew I had to create a new life. I had to deprogram my beliefs of being broken, working to die. Why? Because I'm looking at things in a sense of I only am the consumer. I'm looking at things of when I drive by an apartment building, I'm looking at, oh, I wonder how much that would be a month instead of driving past it versus me saying, oh, I wonder how much it would cost to own that apartment building. Like, for example, I was just driving by an apartment building that I used to live in. So I know for a fact that they probably got about like, 100, 150 units, right? So let's say they have about almost full capacity. Say they got about 100 units filled up. I know in Colorado for a fact, and in Colorado Springs in general, the rent can go anywhere from 900 to 3,000. And I also know that Colorado is one of the highest paid rent, the one of the highest states that, with the highest rent payments. So I know that I'm gonna make some bread. Here's where shifting your mindset worked for me. Instead of thinking how much would it be for me to pay a month on one apartment, I'm thinking how much would it be to hold this apartment and pay for the insurance on the building and then pay for that. So I knew that if I had to pay for insurance, I had to pay for maintenance, I had to pay for utilities, right? So I knew that those were going to be pretty big hefty bills, having about 100 people plus living in my apartment complex. So what I knew for a fact was that, that rent can go from anywhere, to 900 to 3,000. So I knew for a fact that this was already a two bedroom. So it's already going to cut out that 900 to about 1,100 range, right? So let's start there. So let's start at about 1,100. Then we know we have some type of utilities, some type of things like that. So let's go on the low ball and say it's about 100. Let's say it's about $1,200 a month to live in my, or let's say it's $200 because that's kind of low for a utility bill, at least in Colorado. So let's say it's about $200 for that utility bill. So say I'm paying 1,300, base rent 1,100, 200 for the utility bill, and of course that fluctuates. But let's say I'm paying that 1,300 a month for that building. I know if I have 100 residents, I'm getting at least $130,000 a month automated income. People live in their apartments, and that's basically it. You might have to have a maintenance man, but even then, people still, they set up appointments, right? You can't just call the maintenance man at 3 o'clock in the morning. He's going to come up running to your apartment. So I knew that I had to deprogram my beliefs of being broken, working to die, working on somebody else's time, on somebody else's dime. There had to be more to life than working to support someone else's dream just to pay, bills which someone else was funding, and this was funding their luxurious lifestyle. But this is where I knew my mindset had to shift. I was still looking at life as a consumer. Let me start thinking about what it takes. Let me start thinking about the conditioning, the environment I have to be in. So mindset is all about your conditioning. Mindset is all about your goals and how are you going to shape your life around it to be in furtherance of that goal. That's all that is. It might seem like I'm talking a little fast. It might seem like I'm talking a little in circles, but this is the framework because it's very simple, right? The simplest things are the hardest to perfect though. So now going on, I got my own creative development agency. Like I said, I'm a credit enhancer. I help, young entrepreneurs start and scale their business with credit and creating debt to income ratio. But like I said, I had to deprogram my beliefs. I had to switch my mindset. This is the very first step. This is the foundation. Because, like I said, this is a financial vehicle, right? So you're either going to be in pursuance of active income or passive income. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But our goal is to get to passive income, which is automated income. So we don't want to have to go actively pursue that income. So the mindset shift is the first way to start that because you can start thinking about, okay, if this doesn't work, how can I make it work? Or if this doesn't work, what do I need to do? Or what type of room do I need to get in to go make something else work or make what I want to work? Right? So that mindset is shift is very important. It's the very first step. Like I said, this is a financial vehicle. You're trying to get from A to B, right? So the mindset shift is that fuel. This is what's going to get you there and what. So let's talk about this, right? Like and most of the people I see on if I see people in my if I see people in my excuse me, I'm so sorry. So if I see people in my my niche, which is like, credit repair, just, financial literacy. I see people like Dion Cooper. I see people like Deraine Delavante. I see people like Nicholas Burns, a great consumer law exec. He not even an exec, but he moved like an exec because he knows so much. We got people like Myron Golden in this stage to where they look like me, they talk like me. Another person I want to highlight, I forgot about this man, David Shantz has a great podcast, right? So these are people that I look at when I talk about my business or when I think about modeling a business that works, right? Proven systems are just something that we know is, we just know is working, right? So we want to make proven systems work. And that's how you get a successful business. But just from me studying them and from studying from people who look like me, talk like me, from the same likes, the same walks of life that I'm from, I see a common denominator, and I see credit. And credit, like I said, let me go back to sharing my screen, right? I stumbled on credit. Like I was literally like watching like 20 interviews, or not even interviews, just webinars, seminars. I was watching so many different things on just figuring out how to structure your business, how to get funding, right? I was watching things like fix and flips. I was watching things like what was another drop shipping, cold calling, laundromats. There's so many things I was diving into, but the common denominator was credit. So what I thought was, let me focus on the things that they're not focusing on. I'm not going to focus on teaching you how to start a credit repair business, even though I have a credit repair business. What I'm going to do is teach you the frameworks of how to start any business, period. Why? Because I stumbled on this and it really works, and it's really my calling to essentially give you this information. Why? Because it's important to me. The truth is stranger than fiction because it's important to me and I just want to do it. So, like I said, I stumbled on my future, right? I stumbled on a webinar just like the one you're watching now. And like I said, Mr. Dion Cooper, I was watching Dion Cooper webinar about enhancing credit. He basically was talking about Metro 2. He was talking about how he started making, 20K a month just by, fixing people's credit with AI, artificial intelligence. So, needless to say, my life started to change. My mindset started to shift. I started thinking about, oh, how can I make this work for me? What does this look like in my community? Because he's, a dude from the south side of Chicago, 100% more rough neighborhood than I'm from. And beating the odds and coming out to be an entrepreneur and coming out with 100K in a deal, or coming out of the bank with 100K and then still having your credit at 780. So it was important for me to understand this. And I think it's important for everybody to understand this. I think this is one of the starts, right? And I learned that those proven systems were nothing without the discipline to implement them, right? Proven systems are nothing without implementation. The implementation is nothing without discipline. So you have to have discipline and learn how these proven systems work. So my introduction to credit, essentially after watching that Dion Coopwood interview, was that I had to get this done now and I had to do it the right way. So my introduction to credit was crazy. I started learning so many different things and so much scattered information that I didn't even know what to do with it. Like I said, I got those books, and those books filled with information, but I didn't know what to do with it because I didn't have the proper resources or the proper channels to exercise my option. So my introduction to credit was crazy. I learned that credit can be leveraged to create opportunities, income, and security. I learned that personal credit can be utilized when applying for business credit, which is that PG method. We'll talk a little bit about that later. I learned about a credit trade line. A trade line is an individual account listing on your credit report. Those are going to be your revolving credit cards. Those are going to be your installment loans, your mortgage loans, student loans, things like that. And I learned about 0% interest and 0% APR credit cards, which is a great debt reducing strategy. It's a great credit building strategy, essentially. So, there's so many different ways you can approach this. So let me ask you this, like, what are you going to do with this information? Because before we dive into, everything that, is important about what, like the frameworks and the steps, I want to ask you what you're going to do with this information, because you have a few options, right? You can take notes and forget about them. Like I said, if you do that, I'm right with you, because I just had to learn how to stop doing that. And I started going into all of my notebooks, and I was like, man, I could have saved like 2 years of digging and going back and looking for past information when if I just read my notebooks. Right, so don't forget notes and take about them, and don't take notes and forget about them, and use these proven systems. I'm going to give you proven systems. What is a example of a proven system? Fast food. Why? Fast food is proven to be a proven system because number one, I have food that can get out in under 2-3 minutes. Number three, these people know that the McDonald's Big Mac is one of the most unhealthy things and disgusting things you can eat on earth. But guess what? They're probably selling about 500-600 a day. Why? Because proven systems work. And we know that if you put this certain broiler here and it cooks the burgers at a certain type of temperature 3 times faster than it takes a normal burger to cook, those are probably going to work faster when people want fast food. Okay? Don't wing it. Like, you need to have proven systems, because proven systems are a model that you won't copy, but you can model. A model to model, meaning you can mirror this and play and plug in these type of situations with your business, right? So proven systems are important. Don't wing it. Are you dedicated to the results? Meaning, are you willing to put in that invisible work to ensure you reach a certain goal? Meaning, are you willing to put in that work that nobody sees? Are you willing to stay up till 2, 3 a.m. in the morning to get those letters generated or to get those orders packaged, right? How important is that to you? Right? That is going to be a direct factor of how successful you are. If you're dedicated to results or if you're dedicated to money, right? So let me talk a little bit about what this failed business taught me. I talked a little bit about my first business. Of course it failed, but I want to talk a little bit about another business that I started, right? I started a drop shipping store. If you know anything about drop shipping, it's essentially where a lender can, I mean, not a lender, a wholesaler can essentially extend you an account or extend you some type of credit to where you can get this equipment or these products without having to house, without having to ship, or without having to, monitor, right? So all these things will be done for you by Amazon, of course, with about a 70% commission, right? So when I started that business, like I said, I paid for the mentorship. I paid to get in these different rooms. I paid for this man to teach me, right? But I spent about, and I was running about 2 ads a week. So, at $50 each, so I was spending about $100 a month. I mean, not $100, $100 a week, about $400 a month. Okay. So in that 12 months, I spent about 5K and I only made $70. And this is very important. Like, I want to talk about this because this is very important, right? What did this teach me, right? Because remember, we want to get into that visionary mindset to where no L is ever a loss. It's a lesson, right? But what happened is I took that risk and I gained that information. I learned how to create an eye-catching ad, right? I learned how to launch an ad. I learned how to scale social media campaigns, right? Right now, I can look at a drop shipping store and tell you everything that they're doing, tell you where they went to chop this, where they went to do this, how they added this, because I got that expertise. So scale social media campaigns, right? Most importantly, I knew I had to look at things as an entrepreneur. Why? I had to start looking at things in the aspect of I wanted to grow, I wanted to be better, I wanted to change, right? So I knew that my mindset had to shift, right? So and then guess what? Things started to shift. Why? Because I knew I had to stop all the clubbing. I had to stop chasing small thrills. I had to trade in that TV for my books and my podcast, right? I traded in my Benz for a Honda. Things started to change. The energy draining foods for healthier foods. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We talked a little bit about that last week. But energy draining foods can be a big factor of why you don't get things done in your life. And things started to change, y'all. My life started to look a little bit different. I started having fun. I started making friends. Okay? But this is something this is a whole nother monster. So I say that to say personal development is your bridge to, to wealth, to personal, freedom, right? To financial freedom, right? To a road of health, right? And she was kind of corny with it. But at the same time, you have to know what it takes and what it doesn't, right? So your personal development is your bridge to that wealth. I can single-handedly attest to it, right? So, keep your head up, man. So here's what I wanna introduce, right? So we got something that I like to call the PG method. So the PG method is a great way for young entrepreneurs. The PG method is something that I've utilized, especially early out when I couldn't go get a loan, and I couldn't qualify for anything. I used the PG method. So what is the PG method? Right? So the PG method is a personal guarantor. The personal guarantor that promised to pay another party's debt if that party defaults. Personal guarantees are often used for business loans. I was able to receive funds faster than building business credit. I was able to build personal credit and business credit at the same time in some cases. Open doors for funding opportunities for my personal and business credit profile. Now that was a lot. So what is the PG method, right? When we talk about, you're basically co-signing for your business, right? You're basically co-signing for your business. So I was able to receive those funds faster. I was able to co-sign for my business and say, hey, I have, great good credit, great personal credit, right? Can I use that as a co-sign for my business? And I was able to receive funds faster, which, is faster than building that business credit. In some cases, this can take up to 3 to 6 months, right? In some, methods, they can do it in 30 days. But this essentially gets me that credit right now, right? And this opened doors for funding opportunities for my personal and business credit profile. Why? Because in some cases, I can pay not only personal credit and business credit and build trade lines at the same time, but I can open opportunities for more funding and more businesses. A lot of banks, they team up with each other, small banks to team up with big banks or small banks and small banks, and they get more money. So why not get more money out of both of them? They're doing this for me. Let me make sure that I'm looking like, a worthy borrower. So the PG can be a great method for anyone who wants to get funded early on in their business and doesn't have business credit. Period. Right. So I want you to ask yourself this, right? Who taught us about credit? Like, have you, like, I want you to comment if you've ever been taught about credit and how early you were taught about credit. I wasn't taught about credit until I bought my first car. Right. And even then I didn't know what was going on. I knew that they just said yes. They were like, you're approved. So I knew that I was gonna get a car. But let me ask you this, who taught you about credit? I guarantee probably about nobody, right? The question is, why weren't we taught about credit, right? Not were we taught about credit, why weren't we, right? Why? Because we were taught growing up, never get a credit card, buy things outright. Credit cards are for gas and emergencies, but that's a huge jump, meaning that there is no structure, right? I don't have any type of emergency fund. I don't have any type of gas fund. I don't have any type of allocated expenses, right? So that can be very detrimental, right? Credit was looked at as the devil, only something that rich people had access to, or only something that select few had access to. The truth is, this can be true. Like, it can be true to, that credit can be the devil. It's something that only rich people have and that only a select few have access to. Why? This can be true, because credit can be the devil when you don't know how to budget your money. When you take out loans and have no intention of paying them, or you can't afford them before signing that contract, meaning you're taking out of desperation, the credit, your credit can be the devil to you. This can affect your whole way of life. Why? It's going to give you higher interest payments. It's going to mean you're going to be drowning in debt. You can't get approved for car loans, jobs, credit cards, etc., right? There's so many different reasons why credit can be used in your favor. Right? So let's talk about what is credit, because I feel like once you know what credit is, you can learn how to make it work, and then you can learn how to make it work for you. Right? So let's talk about that first stage. What is credit? So credit is the ability to buy goods or services before paying for them, with the understanding that you'll pay them back in the future. Credit comes in many forms. It can come in the form of credit cards, mortgages, loans, right? How does this work? So, how does credit work? Lenders like the banks and the credit unions, they're going to extend credit to the consumers, us, right? They're going to give you a loan for your car, a mortgage loan on your house with the agreement that you will pay them back plus interest. This is where I'm going to start to lose some of y'all, right? Oh, Athena, why would I have to pay 35.9% interest when I'm already signing a contract to pay this? Why? Because this is how the banks make their money. They make their money off of your incompetence and your knowledge of not knowing what to do. So when you sign that agreement, you will pay them back plus interest, usually a security interest, usually a finance charge, things like that. So interest is the charge paid for borrowing money, essentially the cost of someone else's funds. It's usually a percentage. The interest rate you pay on your credit depends on your credit score. So if you have a good credit score, the lower the interest rate, right? If you have bad credit, you're going to have a higher interest rate. Make sense? So let's talk about what your credit score is based on. Your credit score is based on your financial history, including how much you owe and how often you pay bills. So do you pay your bills on time? Do you have any late payments, bankruptcy, derogatory marks on your, report that can lower your score? Because guess what? Now you're not only, um, so once you get those late payments and that bankruptcy and derogatory marks, which lower your score, you now have to start playing on defense, right? So, because what you don't want to happen is you playing on offense and you're not only paying for high interest on the money you were loaned, but now it can affect the insurance premiums. You have to pay more for insurance or don't qualify for the best plans. It can affect your ability to get a job, your ability to get housing. Some utility companies are now even requiring a credit pool before they open utilities in your name. So start thinking about these. This is important, right? This is very important because a good credit score can help you get loans, rent an apartment, find a job. It can help you make bigger those emergency purchases. It can help you get ahead. You can consolidate debt with debt and revolve that money and pay one lender instead of two. So basically, what I can do is say I have a $10,000 credit card, right? Then say I have two cards for a $500 limit. Say I max both of those $500 credit cards out. I can then use that $10,000 credit card, pay both of those credit cards down, and now I'm only paying one lender instead of two or three. Make sense? So credit, now that you know how credit works, let's talk about, how it can work for you, right? So plant the seed, right? So say I got a $2,500 credit line on my American Express, for example, right? So if you know anything about credit, utilization, right? Meaning I want to utilize a certain amount of my credit limit to where I don't seem like too risky or too desperate to spend these funds. So if my limit is 2,500, I know for a fact that I want to stay anywhere from 10 to 30% of this trade line, right? So I know that's 30% of 750 is 30, excuse me, 30% of 2,500 is 750. So another play I want you to run is when you are running ads in Microsoft, I know for a fact that if you flip, you spend $100 in ad credit, you can flip that and they will give you another credit of 500. So now you have a credit of $1,000 for your Microsoft ads, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hire a VA for 250 so I can focus on product development, which is going to accelerate launching content, which is extremely important when we're talking about, scaling this business, right? You want to be focused on getting the funding. You want to be focused on product development. You want to be focused on making yourself look good. You don't want to be focused on, sending out emails or sending out, these are certain things that you can hire a VA to do, right? So let's say I hired a VA low end 250 so I can focus on that product development, right? So say we get everything finished and I'm ready to run ads for my podcast or service, right? So say we launched that 30-day campaign. Say I made a $50 ebook about, how to lose 10 pounds in 10 days, right? Say something like that, right? So say I make that campaign for my $50 ebook and I make one sale a day on the low end. Now, certain platforms you can add on like uh, Amazon Kindle. You can go to a bookstore. You can ask them for a deal. But essentially, what you can do is you can use this $50 ebook to make passive income. A sale a day on the low end will equal $1,500 that day. $1,500 that day, y'all. So you can't tell me that, there's no resources. You didn't get the proper channels, or things didn't go the way you planned, as planned them to go, because these are the facts, right? These are the reasons why we are not succeeding. That $30 campaign of a $50 ebook that I made once can sell as many times as I can sell it, and I can make as much money as possible, right? So, let's go down. So let me ask you this: like, what is your reason and your personal motives for starting a business, right? What is your financial freedom worth to you, and most importantly, for others, right? Because I think that's important, especially when you're building a brand, right? If you have a brand that is, subject to others or affecting others, other people are going to be involved, essentially 100%. So you have to just be, keep your head on swivel for real. So, and always remember, like, be approachable, be able to get attacked by opportunity. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. So, let's see. Let's see. I'm sorry. Okay, so again, I asked you, what is your personal and financial freedom worth to you? Is your money for working for you, or are you working for your money? That's a great question, because we have a few things called income, and we have things called active income, we have things called passive income, right? So active income is income that's, you're in pursuit of, right? Active income is income that you have to physically go and pursue, right? Passive income is going to be essentially automated income, so automated generated income. So you want to be in pursuance of act I mean passive income. Those are going to be your vending machines. Those are going to be your car washes, right? If you got active income, you're going to have places like fast food restaurants and, hotels or things like that, to where there has to be someone in there at all times, right? So let's just say this, right? Let me plant another seed in y'all. I want to trade, some value for money instead of time, because when you start trading value for money, then your money becomes null and void, because it's not really worth that, because I just need this, right? So you can have the money. I just need this. All right. So let's say I'm in real estate, right? Say I want to dive deeper and serve an already, established client base, instead of just, starting that new business venture, which is a great practice, right? If I'm, that real estate agent, and I don't want to go out and do cold calling and look for new clients for my new product or service, I simply want to serve an already established client base. So instead of me starting that new business venture, I'm going to dive deeper and serve that established client base, right? So say I make 6 figures a year. Now that is anywhere from 899,000 to 999,000, right? So that 6 figures a year is pretty good money, right? So number three, say I craft a course showing real estate owners how to scale their business to 60K a month. So I'm already making about 60K a month, right? Which 60K a month is not that bad to understand, right? You can make 10K a month by working 3 days or 4 days a week. You can make 60K a month by working every single day a week of the week, but you are still capitalizing on a opportunity. Keep that in mind, right? So let me ask you this: I charge 10K to show them how to make a 60K and okay, let me read this over. I charge 10K to show them how to make 60K a month. Would you pay for that? 100% you would pay for that, right? You can make 60K in 1 hour by onboarding 6 clients to your program, then versus making 6 figures a year. Why? Because number one, people resonate with you more than they resonate with others. Number two, the underdog never wins. And number three, there's always going to be a situation where your card is pulled, so you just got to know what you're doing, right? So let me ask you this question: how'd you get here, right? Because that brings me to the second step, right? That brings me to shaping your credit profile, which is extremely important, right? This is what the lenders want to see and the bankers. So banks or lenders want to know if you're disciplined, trustworthy, as a mindful borrower. So you want to remove any negatory remarks on your report, any late payments, any missed payments, any repossessions. You want to build that credit history. Red reporters, kick off, authorized users, allows follow to carry over your credit report. right? And then we got the installment loan, which is a car payment, your mortgage bill, phone bill, student loans, etc., right? Because when you build this healthy credit mix, it's going to show the lenders what funds you are and aren't able to manage. Why? Because if I have a credit mix of, say, an installment loan and then, say, a phone bill and then a house note, then it lets the lenders know that you can stretch out your money, number one, and you can allocate expenses. So certain things like that you want to add in there so that you can make sure that your credit profile is shaped the way you want it to be shaped. Right. So let's talk about the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which was created for our protection, right? The Fair Credit Reporting Act is a federal law that protects consumers' credit information and how it's used. I'm going to read that again. The Fair Credit Reporting Act is a federal law that protects consumer credit information and how it's used. The FCRA also promotes the accuracy and privacy of this information. So what does the FCRA do? And what limits do they have? Like who can access your report? Because essentially that's what the FCRA does. They limit who can access your report and who has that type of standing, right? So what they do is they require potential employers to get your rent permission, excuse me, before accessing your credit report. They also require credit bureaus to investigate disputed information and correct or delete inaccurate information. Now, what's the last thing that they say? So they say, so here's what I want to talk about, right? Really quick, because I'm trying to find where it's at. Okay, so again, who's affected by the FCRA? We got credit bureaus, we got those medical information companies, right? Because if we go back up, it requires users of consumer reports to notify customers when adverse actions are taken based on those reports, right? So, when the bureau is called to investigate the disputed information and or correct inaccurate information, we have the power to fight back, is essentially what this is saying. So let's talk about who's affected by the FCRA. This is the credit bureaus, the medical information companies, tenant screening services, those lenders, those insurers, the landlords, and the employer, right? So this act was put in place, the Fair Credit Reporting Act was put in place to protect the consumer. That's us. So this was put in place to protect your privacy. So don't let anybody breach it, and do not let anybody even mention it without your consent. Okay? So let's talk about the three types of consent needed to report information. And this is, excuse me, this is extremely important, right? I think that this is, one of the biggest things that we got to talk about, right? Consent is very huge, right? When we talk about, consent, we want to, just reiterate what that means, right? So let me break this down real quick, right? I hope y'all can see my screen. So let me go to, just pull up the laws. So let's look up 15 USC 6801, right? So what this basically states is protection of non-public information. So let's scroll down, right? And let's look up, the privacy obligation policy. So A says, it is the policy of Congress that each financial institution has an affirmative and continuing obligation to respect the privacy of its customers and to protect the security and confidentiality of those customers' non-public personal information. Now let's click on this. What is your personal information? Non-public personal information, the term non-public personal information means personally identifiable financial information. It means personable, identifiable financial information. So provided by a consumer to a financial institution. Basically saying, anything on your anything on your credit report that pertains to financial information by a financial institution is non-public personal information, right? So resulting from any transaction with the consumer or service performed by the consumer, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so basically what this says is your information is non-public, right? So in furtherance of the policy in subsection A, each agency or authority described in subsection in section 6805 of this title, other than the Bureau of Consumer Protection, or excuse me. See, this is so crazy. I'm gonna talk a little bit about why this is so hard to read a little bit later. But B essentially states, in furtherance of the policy in subsection A, each agency or authority described in section 6805 of this title, other than the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection, shall establish appropriate standards for the financial institution subject to the jurisdiction relating to administrative, technical, physical safeguards. To number one, ensure the security and confidentiality of a customer's records and information. To protect against any anticipated threats or hazard to the security or integrity of such records, and to protect against unauthorized access to use or such information which could result in substantial harm or inconvenience to any customer. So essentially what this is saying is that your non-public information is confidential. Okay, it's stating that it's confidential, and you are not, you are protected against any threats or hazards, right? So that means, when those debt collectors or them people blow up your phone 20 times about a payment, that is unlawful. That is against code 15 USC 6801, B2, right? So, and then it also states that, your non-public personal information, is protected against unauthorized access, meaning you have to authorize them to get access to this non-public information. So this essentially states that your public information, your information is not public. It is confidential, and it has to be authorized to be disclosed, essentially. At least that's my interpretation of it. So when we talk about, consent, right? I want to talk a little bit about consent. So consent, let's bring up another law real quick, because consent is a big thing when we talk about credit, right? Consent is, one of the biggest violations I see nowadays in all of these, with the regulations and, the practices now, that, it is so hard to, make sure that you get you get the proper channels of, consent, right? So let's go to 15 USC 6802 with obligations with respect to disclosures and personal information. So this is a really long law, but I'm going to break down just this top section up here, right? So let's break down 15 USC 6802 Section A. Notice requirements. Except as otherwise provided in this subchapter, a financial institution may not directly or through any affiliate disclose to a non-affiliated third party any non-public personal information unless such financial institution provides or has provided to the consumer a notice that complies with Section 6803 of this title. So I'm going to keep going down, and I'm going to just, break this down further, right? So we got, Section B, right, which is the opt-out. So B1 is, in general, a financial institution may not disclose non-public personal information to a non-affiliated third party unless a financial institution clearly and conspicuously discloses to the consumer in writing or in electric form or other form permitted by the regulations prescribed under 6804 of this title that such information may be disclosed to that third party. And then let's go down to B. The consumer is given the opportunity before the time that such information is initially disclosed to direct that such information not be disclosed to such third party. And then let's go to C. The consumer is given the explanation of how the consumer can exercise that non-disclosure option. So this was a mouthful of what I just read, but we have a few things that I want to break down. So let's go to this real quick. So when we talk about the 3 types of consent needed to report anything on your credit report, right? Let's talk about A. So we just read A, right? Let's go back to A. So it says that it has to be in writing or electronic form for the consumer. So basically what this says is that financial institution, remember, and we can even click on a financial institution. In general, the term financial institution means the institution, the business of which is engaging in financial activities as described in subsection blah, blah, blah. So We know that a financial institution is any institution that has anything to do with your business, or a business institution that has anything to do with disclosing non-public personal information. And we also know what non-public personal information includes of. So to a non-affiliated third party, meaning aka those debt collectors, these are those non-affiliated third parties, unless that financial institution, so that bank, has to give that disclosure of your non-public information to who? And it has to be clear and conspicuous to the consumer. So in writing or an electronic form, so meaning you have to get either an email or a text message, or you have to get something in your mail in written form that they want to, disclose this information to this third party, right? So they have to get this information, they have to get this disclosure. So essentially, that means that they have to tell you, before they get that information. So B is talking about the consumer is given the opportunity before disclosure of information with third party. Let's break this down again. So the consumer is given the opportunity to direct that such information not be disclosed to such third party. That essentially means that before you report, you have to tell me and I will give you an answer. And before you report this, you have to wait on my answer. That's essentially what B is talking about. So let's move down to C. The consumer is given the explanation of how they can exercise their options to confirm or deny disclosure if I, meaning, so this means, so when we see, let's go back here. So when we see the consumer is given that explanation of how the consumer can exercise that non-disclosure option, this essentially means that if I say no, you have to tell me. And you have to tell me not only what I need to do to ensure that this information isn't reported, but you have to, abide by my wishes, because this is my this is my non-public personal information. This is confidential information. Okay? So that essentially means that those student loans should not be there. Those late payments, those derogatory marks haven't they're not supposed to be there. Why? Because 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna get past this A. You're not gonna get past this written or electronic form when you get that essential that first document that you sign, right? Or that first, say it was a bill or something like that, right? They have to have this electronic form before they, disclose your information. Another law that I want to bring up just really quick is give me a second, I wrote it down. Give me a second, Joe. Okay, I remember. So let's look up 1666B. Timing of payments. This just is just going to prove that those late payments are not able to be on your credit report. That was just one. Those 6802 and 6801 were just two laws that you can utilize to get these removed off. But here's another thing. Let's talk about 1666B, timing of payments. A creditor may not treat a payment on a credit card account under an open-end credit or consumer credit plan as late for any purpose. It's really all you need to hear right here, unless the creditor has adopted reasonable procedures designed to ensure that each periodic statement, including the information required, is mailed or delivered. Mailed or delivered. That is a key word. You probably don't ever get mail before you get these late payments on your report. You're never going to get anything delivered to you because it will have to be delivered physically to you as a consumer no later than 21 days before the payment due date. And you want to know how another reason why this is, null and void? Because it cannot be a late payment if they sent this 21 days before the payment was due, and that never happens. So they never get past this this A. They never get past A. You're never going to be given the opportunity, and you're never going to be given an explanation of how you can exercise your non-disclosure option. So this is them committing an unlawful acts. This is them committing fraud towards you and essentially doing what I like to call this is a form of identity theft. Why? Because they are using your information against your knowledge. And sometimes they even sell your information, right? So those student loans, those late payments, those are derogatory marks. They should not be on your report in the first place. But guess what? This does not mean you don't owe the money. It doesn't mean you don't owe the money, right? It just means you now have the power to control what information is disclosed to the people you want to work with. And how do I know that that is true? Because we have 15 USC 1637 open end consumer credit plans. So when we talk about let's see. I think it's B. Let's see real quick. Oh, okay, here we go. So statement required with each billing cycle. The creditor of any account under an open-end credit consumer plan shall transmit to the obligor for each billing cycle at the end of which there is an outstanding balance in the account or with respect to which a finance charge is imposed, a statement setting forth each of the following items to extent applicable. Let's see. Give me a second, y'all, because I be writing. I know so much stuff. Let me see. So, hold on. I'm sorry. I gotta be ready. Um, that's right. Okay. So here's what I want to talk about. Let's jump. Let's jump. So why do I know that let's go back to this, right? How do I know that we have the power to control what information is disclosed? How do I know that we as consumers have the power? Why? Because in 15 USC 1681B, permissible purposes of consumer reports, we know okay. So conditions for furnishing and using consumer reports for employment purposes. We know that a consumer reporting agency, da 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 da. Okay, it's probably the wrong law. So let's just put. Okay, it's not here, but I'll probably drop it below. But there is a law that essentially states that the banking system is based on the I'm not going to spend too much time looking for it and looking for proof, but what I will say is there is a law that states that the banking system is based on the public's confidence, right? So if the public confidence is not in the banking system, meaning we don't trust the banks, then the whole economy as we know it is going to crash because the banking system is the backbone of our economy, right? And we have the power, meaning if like it's the same thing going on if you see in any type of news today, right? You see certain judges are looking to abolish the police department. Why? Because the public's confidence in the police department is essentially gone and it's essentially compromised. So now we are in a situation where the economy as we know it is gonna crash. Because why? Because the control narrative is false. Because they make more money when we pay our debt. They don't make any money if we don't pay our debt. But again, there's a thing to where they do make money off of the debt and they are still double charging or double dipping. And that's where we get things like student loans, charge offs, derogatory marks, because they are reporting this information. And most times they already get paid. They charge it off as a loss on their taxes, and then they still attack you and then sell your information to third party, non-public information. They sell your non-public information to third parties, which is illegal without your consent. And then you get into a situation to where now you are in debt. So we have the power, right? And here's what I wanted to talk about, like, because I read a mouthful with a lot of those laws, right? And I want to talk about wordfare. Wordfare is completely unfortunately, it's still legal, but we have something called wordfare, to where we see things like credit bureaus not existing. There's no such thing as a credit bureau. We have things like wordfare to where they can control the narrative. Misinformation. Credit bureaus don't exist. We have credit bureaus are not bureaus. They are, like they said, third party, non-affiliated, non-affiliated third parties. Those are not bureaus. Why do you think that this law was put in place by the federal government, right? Let's go back to this. This was a federal law that protects the consumers. So why would they be protecting themselves against another government entity? Because these are not government entities. These are private companies that have assumed the role of, being credit reporting agencies. But when we hear words like this is where wordfare comes in play. When we hear words like bureaus, we think what? Government. We think Federal Reserve Bank, which is just another regular bank. It's not, it has nothing to do with the federal or the reserve, right? But it has something to do with, the banking system, but they control a narrative. Why? Because they make more money off of this. Why I'm saying this to you is we have the power, not the credit reporting agencies. We have the power to understand who we want to work with, when we want to work with, and what information is relayed to who we want to work with, right? So again, I asked you, what are you going to do with this information? Because you have three options today. You have one option, you can do nothing. You can take, this information and take it as a scam, or take it as whatever you want to take it as, or you can do it yourself. You can do some research, do some scattered information, look at this YouTube video, look at this YouTube video. Usually, it takes a lot more time. Or you can use this information that I've given you just today to change your life. You can use this in your everyday life. I use this in my everyday life to, when I think about applying for credit cards and when I think about applying for funding, right? I use this information to change my life because I know that I have more power than they lead me to believe, right? So let's move on to the third step. So we talked about credit. We talked about what it is and how it works. Now I'm going to talk about, and then we talked about a little bit about how credit can work for you. I gave you a couple of examples about how you can use your debt to create income. But let's talk about the third step. And this is arguably the most important step, right? Building relationships, because your network is your net worth. Why? Because your relationships that you build are more important than the money that you get, right? Because you can't do this yourself. That's where you see people like Donald Trump going bankrupt twice and getting rich three times, right? Because your environment has, you change your environment, you build relationships, because he knows that his relationships with certain people can get him in doors that his knowledge wouldn't get him in, right? Knowledge only takes you so far, right? So I want to talk about the biggest myths and misconceptions about, big, business communities, building that business community. So the first one, this is huge, right? Your family and your friends will not be your clientele in your team. This is very untrue and misleading. Another one is how to create a relationship and not how to keep it. We're so focused on getting in these leads, but we're not taught how to build your email list. We're not taught how to send out daily emails. We're not taught how to, work around a newsletter or a blog, right? So creating that relationship and keeping it and not keeping it is, one of the biggest misconceptions about how you just go get a sale and then that's how you become rich. And then the biggest one I see is that you need a huge following to make a huge impact. You don't need 100 million followers to make $100 million, right? So that's a big, false and misleading misconception. These are all things that hold us back as business owners, right? So, and this is why this is why my first like three or four business failed. Like I thought that my family was going to be the people that would help bring me up. I thought that customers were, just, commodities or names on an Excel sheet. And I also thought that um I thought that I needed that huge following to make that, that huge impact. I thought that I needed to reach so many different people when just one person was enough, right? But the second I learned these three skills or approaches that I'm about to introduce to you, I was able to scale my business without doing more work. I was just digging deeper into those, those obtained skills, those things that I spent an hour and a half on each day. Because when we talk about passive income, we talked about active income, right? When we talk about when you're in the pursuance of active income, it becomes harder. But this is how you get that bridge and you use that financial vehicle of your mindset to get you and these are gonna these three skills are going to be your tires. These are going to be your rear view mirror so that you know who's coming behind you and you know who's when you need to get over, right? These are going to be your steering wheels, right? So these three skills help me scale my business without doing more work, but just digging deeper into those skills that I already obtained. There's no need to go start a new business every time you want a new a new stream of income. Build off of your existing business where you already have had success, right? So let's talk about skill number one or approach number one. Keeping business and personal separate. You want to keep business and personal separate. Why? Because you want to outsource. When you outsource and and you find someone who will push your vision like it's theirs and know that they work for you, right? You can essentially take not only a lot of guessing game out of your work. You don't have to, you don't have to hire your cousin to be your marketer and then teach her how to do it, send her through all these classes, do all these different things just to outsource your team. Go hire somebody who can work for you and work with you and understand what you need in your business, right? Changing your environment, becoming a boss and hiring that team. Hiring that team is essentially, the biggest thing that you have to start with. You want to start with your management because once you get your management, everything will trickle down, right? Once you get management, you can start figuring out what your manager, once you give your manager all the visions, all of the goals and the expectations and the projections, right? Then they can start building a team around those goals, right? So, and that's how you become a boss. That's how you take a step back from your business, right? And then you want to work with people that want to work with you, not who you want to work with. Work with people who want to work with you, not who you want to work with. They're gonna push your vision like it's theirs. Sometimes this is gonna be their vision. This is something that they can hop behind and they can build their life or their income off of. You gonna be paying some people's rent. So make sure it's the right people, right? Skill or approach number two, nurturing existing relationships. So nurturing existing relationships is imperative, right? You don't want no sales stance. Too often as entrepreneurs, we look at a sale or uh, on board as, this is it. I just need to get that one sale and then, we'll go from there. No, the second you get that phone or email, right? The second you get that phone number or email, you need to be focused on how to retain that customer or how to keep that customer, right? So find new ways to serve them. They have already paid you. They want to know more. If you've already delivered for them, you know, they're just going to pay you for more, right? If I learn from someone, say we go back to being that real estate agent, right? And I think I spoke on that real estate. Did I speak on that? It's been okay. Okay, give me a second. I'm tripping. So let's go back to that $2,500 credit card, right? So say, hold on, give me a second. So say, so my bad, y'all. So say you want to add, that service-based, service plans to your business or your brand, right? I don't remember if I spoke on it earlier. I spoke on a lot of stuff today, but essentially, if I'm that real estate agent, I make, 60K a month, right? And that's about 3K a day, which is not that hard to do. Just to let y'all know. So if I'm making that 60K a month just off doing fix and flips, and then say I want to, instead of, I want to trade some value for time instead of time for, money, and say I, excuse me, say I go and I want to craft a course. So say I go and craft that course and I make it once, right? And then I start selling it for, I'm teaching, people who are making no money, little to no money, how to make 60K a month off their fix and flip business. Now, say I start charging 10K to learn how to make 60K. If you had 10K, you would 100% pay for that service right now. Now, I already know how to do it. I'm doing it myself, right? So I already have the expertise and I'm already servicing someone who I know. So say I sell someone a house or I do fix and flips and I'm selling to a real estate agent or I have a real estate agent who's involved in my everyday business, right? I've achieved something great and I started in scaling my business. So why not teach that real estate agent how to do fix and flips? Why not teach that person I just sold a home how to do fix and flips if they want to, get their business right? Because these are all people who are going to be looking out for me. Once you add someone and someone has a particular service that they bought from you, they are automatically in your community. Always find new ways to serve them, right? So, existing customers are your only customers, right? Creating a service-based plan for your community, it 100% will boost your income. And it's going to be without the hassle of starting a new business. You can essentially elevate your brand and transition automatically into retirement. Why? Because I know if I make 60,000 a month doing fix and flips, I can go and charge people how to make 60 and charge people to learn how to make 60K a month, and I could charge them 10K to learn how to make 60K a month. 100% you would pay 10K to learn how to make 60K if you had those funds, right? So I can onboard 6 people in 1 hour and make that 60K in an hour versus making it in a month. Why? Because I added service-based plans to my brand and I'm servicing someone who already knows what I do works. Right. So don't retire at your job, even if it's your passion. Most players become coaches. The best bosses become owners, right? The best teachers are the best students, right? So transitioning into coaching or teaching can and will retire you, under 5 years, no matter what age you are, what stage you are in your business. If you have achieved something, there's always someone who wants to pay you to learn how to do it. Point blank, period. It's just how it works, right? So here's the reality. Most people go the hard way, and most people think it's the only way to go. And this is something that I've had, my struggles with as well. Right. We go in without a new mindset and buy another job. Don't buy another job. Don't buy another headache. Don't buy a job or a business or go get a business that you know is not going to be, you're not going to be interested in 2 months. Don't essentially buy another headache in a job. You go get a job for free. Don't buy one, right? So don't not learn about debt and credit. Don't, use your money and invest, right? Don't use your own money to start your business. Don't use your money borrowing from your family, right? Today I taught you what credit is, how it works, and how to make it work for you. Do not go the hard way and not learn how to create, income with debt, right? Don't go into entrepreneurship without a mentor. Don't, like I said, don't go looking for that scattered information. Don't go here and watch this about real estate, then go here and watch this about business funding. Get you a mentor who's done it and has went through all the proper channels and has succeeded, right? Don't become the endless rat race of playing catch up. Don't go from living paycheck to paycheck to living credit card payment to credit card payment and then mortgage payment to mortgage payment. Set yourself up to where you're not in this endless rat race of playing, oh, let me just catch up on my bills. No. First of all, and bills are overrated. Bills are overrated nowadays. So do not play catch up. Do not get caught in this endless rat race, right? And if you're trying to retire after your 40s, that is another form of this endless rat race and playing catch up. You, just don't do it. Like it's you just making things harder on yourself, right? Why spend the good years that you have where you could be spending living your life, being with your family, the good years, that you have, and why would you spend that working for somebody else while they're on vacation every other month? No, don't do that. And again, looking for scattered information. Don't do that. Right? Benjamin Franklin said, tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn. Involve yourself, teach yourself, remember what what you started, how you started out as and what you wanted to finish out. Because you have to have the vision. You have to have the vision, people. The keys is yours. Um, you know, you have to have the vision to just be different and be authentic and not and be unapologetic and be inspirational because that comes with entrepreneurship, that comes with innovation. So that was a mouthful. I had I had a lot of stuff I wanted to reiterate, but I think we kind of hit everything, right on the ball. We on the money ball. And I'm just glad that everybody, spent their time with me today. This was a very productive episode. I'm gonna start, doing webinars like this, and giving that free game to y'all more often. So again, if you enjoy this and you learn anything from this, add it in the comments. I really want to know. Excuse me. I really want to know what y'all learned, what y'all thought, I could, improve on, and just let it flow, right? Because I'm real thick skinned. I just want to know, like, what you guys learned and what you didn't learn, or what thought I missed out, or what you thought I could dive deeper into, right? Because that essentially can give me more ways to help y'all, because I can find new ways to create content based off of that. So yeah, I think this is the start of something great. And I'm just glad for everybody that came, and just came in and joined the visionary mindset webinar, joined me, gave me some of your time. This is something that I really spent a lot of time on. This is something I've been studying for over 2 years. So it works. It works. That's all I'm gonna say. And I really appreciate everyone who just shared their time with me today. So I'm gonna wrap it up with that being said. This is KDK Capri, the mentor, the mentee. I'm gonna leave all of the resources and everything down in the description below. So just go ahead, grab that. Go ahead and grab the how to become an entrepreneur ebook as soon as possible. Right, I'm giving you, essentially my backstory and how I was able to become an entrepreneur, a full-time entrepreneur before the age 25. So, yeah, go grab that ebook. I believe it's only like nine ninety nine, right? So go ahead, grab that ebook, and just let me know how y'all feeling. I'm gonna be coming back with another video tomorrow, and hopefully just trying to give y'all like daily content. Like I said, this month will be focused on credit and business funding. So again, this is the Wealthy and Healthy podcast. This month we are focused more on wealthy than the healthy. Last month we were focused more on the healthy than the wealthy. But we are giving y'all this game, and I really hope you guys start to soak it up. I hope you guys took some notes today. A friend of mine told me if you make a presentation and people don't have at least 6 or 7, pages of your presentation, you ain't do your job. So let me know if you got how many pages of notes y'all got in the comments below. And again, like, comment, and subscribe. This is KDK Capri, the mentor, the mentee, and I am out.